one of the more fascinating aspects of what you might call the dyslexia conversation is the overlap between dyslexia and handedness. That is, not being right-handed, not necessarily being left-handed, but not being right-handed. So for instance, being ambidextrous, use of both hands, sometimes one hand, sometimes another, sometimes being left-handed. So dyslexia and handedness. There seems to be some evidence, not overwhelming, but there seems to be some evidence, and quite a lot of anecdotal evidence, that dyslexics are more likely not to be right-handed than non-dyslexics. Well, okay, so that's quite interesting. Then let's look at another aspect of the research. There is some research. Initially, there was some fascinating research a long time ago now, sometime in the 90s, from some Scandinavian researchers talking about homosexuality and non-right-handedness. And this is really interesting. There seems to be almost twice as many non-right-handed homosexual subjects in this particular case as right-handed homosexual subjects. In other words, there's a large number of non-right-handed homosexual subjects. There was also, in this study, a large number, or disproportionately large number, of gay men and gay women who had reading difficulties. Now, whether they just happened to come across a particular sample of gay men who were both left-handed, or left-handed and had reading difficulties, we don't know. But we assume not. We assume that these kinds of research studies have some kind of rigor to them. So what we have is, on the one hand, there seems to be evidence to show that dyslexics are disproportionately not right-handed, and on the other hand, gay men and women are disproportionately not right-handed, and there's some evidence as well to suggest that gay men and women may be disproportionately, let's say they might struggle with reading and writing, they might struggle with literacy. A little bit like dyslexia. Now, I use this phrase advisedly, gay men and women, because there's another piece of research that came later talking about, in the literature called it transsexual, these days we might say transgender men and women, or transgender people, and maybe people who are non-binary, who are more likely to be not right-handed than otherwise. Now, I don't know what to make of this. It could be that what we see is a link, and perhaps a genetic link, something to do with hormones or something, I'm not certain, but there seems to be a link between dyslexia, handedness, and, as it were, non-cis heterosexual people. In other words, I mean, I'm just stumbling over words there, but there seems to be a link between being dyslexic, not being right-handed, and being gay or gender non-traditional. Why is this? I don't know. Have there been many studies that have shown this? There have been a couple, but not an overwhelming number of studies. So I don't want to take this as absolutely sort of biblical, as it were, but I think it's an interesting thing to explore. Is there a link between dyslexia, handedness, sexuality, and gender? It appears that there might be.